Welcome back to the Lyme Rx Forum and your four-stage recovery process. Today, I'm so happy as we step into the third stage, which is regeneration. If we are willing to observe and immerse ourselves in nature, which is a theme I keep talking about, we experience how nature can be our greatest example of healing and our greatest healer on our path to full recovery. Nature teaches us things like scorched earth can actually foster an abundance of new life. Nature responds boldly to disturbance, even large ones like a wildfire or floods, when we give it the chance. Burned vegetation can actually enrich the soil with vital nutrients, which promote new plant growth. We'll see tiny shoots push through blackened and charred soil and debris to become lush landscapes again. And it actually serves to increase biodiversity, this fire. While we may not realize or recognize it, slowly and quietly, nature always begins to regenerate and repair, oftentimes even benefiting from such events like floods or fire. And what I want you to know is that we too can heal by giving ourselves and our bodies a chance to repair and rebuild. We are no different than nature. And I'll say it again, because we are nature. And no matter the destruction that we have faced, that you have faced physically or mentally or emotionally, our bodies, your body holds the blueprint for full renewal. Just like nature is in a constant state of regenerating and repair and adaptation, your body is constantly rebuilding, repairing, and restoring itself. And to deepen this conversation, which I just love so much, we are fortunate again to have our producer here, Jamesine Blakely, to join me and ask me a few more questions.
Well, thank you so much. My first question is from the perspective of your four-stage recovery process. How do you define regeneration?
So technically, regeneration is simply the process of restoring damaged or lost cells or tissues, or even organs or entire body parts. It's just restoring them to their original form and function. I tend to focus on that definition and the more ecological perspective and definition of regeneration, which refers to the ability of entire ecosystems to recover from disturbances like I was mentioning, like forest fires or floods or extremely damaging winds. So my personal understanding in the context, especially of the Lyme Rx Forum, merges those two related definitions.
Thank you. And you began your career as a fisheries scientist, which is an unusual and fascinating entry into the world of wellness. What's one story of regeneration that still inspires you today?
I've seen so many in my education and my career, and one that really stuck out for me is what happened here along the West Coast in California in the early 20th century. Along this coast, it used to be filled with sea lions and the sounds of their barking, and then that absolutely nearly vanished. So we saw silence replace these vibrant colonies that sprawled across these rocky shores. And this is because fishermen saw sea lions as competition for already dwindling fish stocks and fish populations. And so the fishermen shot at the sea lions freely and often. And we were seeing their bodies wash up on shore as this grim reminder of unchecked, rampant human exploitation that had persisted for decades. And locals would walk along the piers and along the shoreline and notice this eerie absence of life where these colonies used to thrive and they were so loud. The silence was so unnatural. And this was absolutely a very low point for the sea lions on the West Coast here. They were hunted by humans to near extinction. and their population became so fragile that any additional pressure could have truly pushed them right to the brink of extinction or over the edge. They were on very thin ice, and this was not very long ago. And so when populations are this low, external forces really start to matter more than normal. And when you are at a low point, like you might be with Lyme, those forces, both good or bad, matter even more. Because what nature constantly and consistently shows us is that the capacity to rebuild never disappears. Sea lions were in a very dire situation, and this has a happy ending. Today, they are flourishing and they're almost at carrying capacity. They're everywhere again.
Oh, that's an amazing story. Thank you so much for sharing that. So you're saying that in nature, regeneration is part of an ongoing cycle. And what parallels do you see between the regeneration of ecosystems like the seals and the way our bodies heal?
Yeah, so over the last 50 years, California sea lion populations have made this dramatic recovery. And that is thanks largely in part to these legal protections and effective management. So in 1972, the Marine Mammal Protection Act was put in place, and it was a vital turning point. And I promise this does relate to Lyme. The federal law banned the hunting, harassment, capture, and killing of all marine mammals in US waters. And so we had these strict protections in place, which is fantastic. And because of that, sea lion populations were given a chance to stabilize, to grow, to rebuild, to repopulate. So we saw improved fishery management significantly helping, as well, because with the fisheries management, we ensured the stable food supplies for them, things like anchovies and sardines. So we also worked on their food supplies through fishery management. And conservation groups popped up. Marine mammal rescue centers played a key role in rehab and public education. So as a result of all of these efforts, we saw their numbers surge from just, I think they were in the tens of thousands to in the 1970s to over 300,000 today. This is a powerful example and story of recovery driven by both top-down and bottom-up efforts. So you're probably again wondering, why is she talking so much about sea lions? And what do these pinnipeds have, and the Marine Mammal Protection Act have to do with your recovery, my recovery from Lyme disease, or whatever it is that you're facing? The sea lion story mirrors your own potential for healing. It is a concrete, real world example of nature's ability and capacity to regenerate even after being pushed to the brink. Something that really resonated with me when I was facing Lyme and I thought I was on death's door, essentially. The ability to recover happens in, like I was saying, two interconnected ways. So we have the top down, and that was the Marine Mammal Protection Act, and stopping people from killing these sea lions. And for you, that would be, and the way I think about it is top down is like the external support, the antibiotics, your medications, your treatments, your interventions, all the things outside of yourself that you're using to recover. Bottom up is working to create within you the internal conditions to facilitate healing. So this is what you're doing to support your immune system, how you're nourishing your body. Are you managing stress? Really focusing on the state of your nervous system, spending time in nature. And this is analogous to what we did for the sea lions, which was ensure that they had a healthy and abundant food source. So I utilized both top-down and bottom-up approaches to heal my raging Lyme infection fully. And I have also spent many, many years standing on the coast and witnessing with my own eyes and my own ears the largest populations of sea lions in centuries. And so I used them as a living, breathing example. that given the time and the right conditions, healing is always possible. And we have to give it a chance.
Wow, thank you so much. Can you tell us the specific characteristics of regeneration that exist between nature and people that you see?
Yeah. Things can take a long time to get really bad. It took a long time for the sea lion populations to plummet, and to deplete to that dire state. That applies to us too in so many ways, in us humans. It can take a long time. Your body can withstand a lot of pressure for many, many years. That was what happened for me. Lyme did not just come out of left field when I really think about it. Humans can withstand pressure for many, many years, just like ecosystems. And that's what I've witnessed in both ecosystems and within my own body. And that when given the chance, healing actually can happen quite a bit more quickly than we even anticipate or predict. And I've seen that in my career, and I saw that within my own body. Lyme took a long time to manifest into serious late stage chronic neurological for me. And when I gave my body the appropriate treatments, time, I worked on myself in the appropriate way, I actually got out of this much more quickly than I got into this mess. And so, yeah, just knowing that recovery is absolutely possible, and recovery is oftentimes more quick than we anticipate.
Which is amazing. And what are signs that our listeners could take into consideration that would let them know that they've entered the regeneration stage?
Yeah, when we become sick with Lyme, we tend to focus on the killing of the pathogen. That is tends to be like out of the gate, the first thing you want to do. I want to rid my body of this infection. And that was what I did too. That's what your antibiotics are doing, your SOT, all of these things are intended to remove the infection from your body. And that can be a very uncomfortable and tumultuous stage, characterized by Herx reaction after Herx reaction after Herx reaction, and they can be really intense. And so oftentimes we see ourselves feeling much worse in the earlier stages, feeling much worse before we feel better. I felt terribly worse for at least 6 months to a year before I started to actually improve. And so when I started to move into the regeneration phase and some of the characteristics that I see as like hallmarks of moving into that regeneration stage, your Herx reactions have sort of eased. Maybe there's more time between them. You're more familiar with them. You understand what they are. You view them as a positive reinforcement of some of the treatment you still may be doing. And then these good days, good hours start to sprinkle in. And again, not to dissuade you that when you are having Herx reactions, this can be a really positive indicator of healing happening. But when those become less frequent, I really think you're in that stage where you start to actually feel better than before, even if it's only for small amounts of time. And I, for example, started to feel like my nervous system. I went, oh my gosh, I'm actually a lot more calm and present than I was before Lyme. And I was still riddled with body aches. So you might be seeing improvement in some areas and still, in the throes of it in other areas. And that's okay. That's totally normal.
Wonderful. And what are some simple daily practices you recommend to support regeneration?
I think when I have to really boil it down to the most important things, it would be nervous system work. Again, I say this, there is no way to overstate the importance of assessing and addressing the state of your nervous system at most times, because it impacts every other system in your body so strongly. And the ways that I effectively address my nervous system, my chronic nervous system dysregulation, number one, hands down, is breath work. Find yourself people that are trained and are experienced and that you know and that you trust. There are fantastic breathwork facilitators and instructors. We have 3 of them coming on in this next phase, which is incredible. Meditation, nature, always. Speaking out your feelings out loud. Again, assessing who you surround yourself with, what you listen to, what you read, and potentially considering going outside of just talk therapy, which is important and certainly has a time and place. I'll say it again, breath work was easily the most impactful and profound nervous system regulator that I found. Also really important is cold water exposure. That was really, really good for my nervous system. And what you're trying to do essentially is create a really warm and cozy place for your body to heal and recover. And that includes nourishing food. You cannot like out supplement a poor nutrient depleted diet. Your body needs vitamins and minerals to rebuild and to repair and to facilitate this regeneration. And so, yeah, if I had to summarize it in 2, it would be nervous system, attending to the state of your nervous system, and ensuring that you have really nourishing food.
Thank you so much. And what role does joy, pleasure, happiness play in regeneration?
Everything, I guess, because that affects your nervous system. And we don't often think about that because we're often told that that is not necessarily productive. That is exactly how I felt for most of my life, that those things were not productive. And what I've come to learn is they can be the most productive, um, you know, healing that you can do. And society has probably convinced you that that is not the case, but truly it is.
Well, thank you so much. And just a couple of rapid fire questions. The one thing you want people to know about regeneration.
That it's possible, that it's completely possible. And that when you actually start to open your eyes and look around, it's happening every day, all day around you and within you.
Thank you. I want to ask you this one last question. If you could leave people with one thing to focus on after watching this episode, what would it be?
To keep going and to keep giving your remarkable body a chance. You can heal. This can take time. You have to keep showing up. You can be right on the brink. I've seen it, like I said, time and time again. But to keep going and give your remarkable body a chance.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining me today and for watching and sharing the Lyme Rx Forum. I really encourage you to show up this week to listen to our 4 impactful speakers. You are going to learn things that really are not shared anywhere else in this Lyme community. And we will see you tomorrow at 6 a.m. Join us.